What's good, friends? It is so fantastic to be with you here today to share this article because this article is entitled The Best Vodkas and is being offered up by a subdivision of the New York Times. I have so many issues with this article. Of course, I'd have issues with any article that was trying to say they'd found the best of anything. There's too much of everything. That's why Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy is such a good idea in meta concept. For those of you who are still with me, we thank you for supporting the name of Douglas Adams. Um, but no, you can't pin down the best vodkas unless you've had every vodka, and nobody can do that because they don't have enough time in their liver. But there is a very specific reason that I knew I had to share this with you, and that's going to become evident in the first section. What we're going to do this time, rather than reacting block by block or paragraph by paragraph, is we're going to go section by section because they gave a full review of five vodkas, and then have another section, the competition, why you should trust us, how we picked, how we tested, why you shouldn't pay a lot for vodka unless you want to, what about gluten-free vodka, the sources, and then of course we have to meet your guide, which is an interesting way of saying about the author. So we're going to go section by section, and I'm going to react at the end of each section, just so we read a little more at each go, because there's a lot going on here. This is Wirecutter of the New York Times. In Adult and Dining and Entertaining Under Adult, we find The Best Vodkas by Haley Perry, published October 17th, 2023. No subtitle. Begin article. Vodka is one of the world's most popular spirits, yet very few people in the US seem to fully appreciate it. At least it feels that way. It is our quest to find the best In our quest to find the best vodkas, we struggled to locate resources, enthusiasts, and specialty bars in this country devoted exclusively to the clear spirit. Even its legal definition leaves little room for romance. Until recently, the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau required any liquor marketed as vodka to be without distinctive character, aroma, taste, or color. But after tasting 15 different vodkas, our testers ended up with a newfound respect for the spirit. Despite this country's relative lack of fervor for the vodka compared with, say, whiskey or gin, we surfaced with a surprisingly diverse section of favorites. Our picks include a briny vodka that's great for martinis, a richer option for those with a sweet tooth, and a creamy workhorse vodka that belongs in every home bar. They said this country twice. I'm pretty sure they just said it because of repeatable ambiguity and the fact that it's one word longer than in America, which I'm sure they get paid by the word. But it gives me the ick anytime anybody says in this country. I can't hear it any other way except in my first girlfriend's dad's voice. You know what I'm talking about? Back in high school, your first partner's dad, who was just gruff. Just because we all started dating way too early and they were just suspicious of everybody you brought home. Or everybody they brought home, I should say, in that situation. But so, there's that. Actually very interesting research into the Alcohol and Tobacco Tax and Trade Bureau requirement of liquors marketed as vodka to be, quote, without distinctive character, aroma, taste, or color, end quote. That's very wild to think about. Of course, there's been way too many definitions for alcohol done in this country. But what I really want to point out, and why I bookmarked this article and why I wanted to share it with you, was the adjective creamy being used in relation to vodka. Because the vodka that they pick as the best out of the 15 that they sampled, the top of the top 5, they describe it in the header of the next section and throughout the section devoted to it as a creamy, superb, all-purpose vodka. And I don't drink a lot of vodka, and the one they're describing here is Kirkland Signature. I've never had a Kirkland anything. But how would you even get creaminess into vodka, and would you want creaminess in vodka? I don't know, and I don't believe that that would be true. And that's what I want out of all of you in terms of engagement on this video. Please tell me if you are a sucker for the white rum, and if you have any opinions on whether or not it can or should be creamy. Because those motherfuckers, eyebrow, at the New York Times think you're looking for creamy vodkas, and we're the only ones brave enough to speak up and tell them otherwise. So, a creamy, superb, all-purpose vodka, Kirkland Signature American Vodka. Photo credited to Connie Park shows Kirkland Signature Vodka with its black bar label on a very sickly yellow background that makes me uncomfortable to think that somebody might have requisitioned it. And then there's a really unnecessarily HTML to death graphic box surrounding a different picture of Kirkland vodka with an opaque bottle as opposed to a see-through one. And inside the graphic box, it says, Kirkland Signature American Vodka, the unanimous favorite. This vodka is the cleanest, creamiest, most versatile one we tried. $15 from Total Wine & More. From our first round of tasting until our last, Kirkland Signature American Vodka was unanimously our favorite of the bunch. If you want a clean, neutral vodka to drink on its own, in cocktails, or subdued with other mixers, this is the bottle we'd recommend. The vodka has aromas and flavors of citrus and rose that are soft and subtle, not overpowering, and it blends well in just about any cocktail you can mix. It has the silkiest texture of all the vodkas we tried, and it doesn't lose this exceptional creaminess when diluted. This bottle also lacks the harsh alcohol burn on the nose or palate that makes many vodkas off-putting. There is one caveat. It comes only in a Costco-sized bottle. This vodka is sold in a 1.75-liter bottle, which is more than double the size of a standard 750-milliliter bottle of liquor. While we believe that this vodka belongs in every home bar, you may have trouble fitting it into your liquor cabinet. The bottle is 14 inches tall, and the only place I can hide it in my house is underneath the kitchen sink. Base ingredient, corn. What we like it in, virtually everything. Where it's made, United States. Don't you mean in this country? Alright, so as I said, really unnecessarily heavily edited HTML graphic box surrounding it. And then this creaminess. And did you catch how they brought the creaminess up? It has the silkiest texture of all the vodkas we tried, and it doesn't lose this exceptional creaminess. This person thinks that creamy and silky are the same thing, and that might be the root of their confusion. And possibly the thwacking to the base that brings this whole house of cards down. And it continues to astound me that something smooth could also be described as creamy. Because you could describe bourbons and whiskeys and such as smooth, and I don't think you'd either say they were creamy. Totally nailed the meter on that one. I do appreciate, honestly I do, the type of journalism that's being done here, where it's like, hey, here's my crazy writer's opinion about this vodka that you may or may not be in a tall enough tax bracket to really sit down and appreciate and engage with. And here's some practical advice. This only comes in big. And on that note, you'd better have a liquor cabinet. You may have trouble fitting it into your liquor cabinet. I don't know if we can afford liquor cabinets where we live anymore. Of course they can, but that's a whole other thing. Anyways, moving on. Header. Crisp, classic, and citrusy, Smirnoff number 21. Photo beneath, credit Connie Park, sickly yellow background with a Smirnoff number 21 vodka bottle standing proud with its shield and banner icon and its bold gold outline over the Smirnoff word itself, which I've personally always appreciated. The heavily HTML'd box says Smirnoff Vodka number 21. Less creamy, but more widely available. If you can't get your hands on a bottle of Kirkland's signature American vodka, Smirnoff's flagship bottle is the next best thing. $13 from Total Wine & More. Vodka wasn't readily available in the US until about a century ago, when Smirnoff arrived and was introduced to the masses, according to The King of Vodka by Linda Himmelstein. Smirnoff produced the vodka of choice for Russian royalty before the Russian Revolution, and it later became the first vodka distillery in the US. Over time, Smirnoff rose to be the world's best-selling vodka and a pillar of the popular Moscow Mule. After tasting Smirnoff number 21 vodka in multiple brand concealed tests, we can see why its legacy lives on. It's crisp, clean, and versatile. This vodka is thinner and less creamy than Kirkland's signature American vodka, but if that pick is unavailable, or you don't have access to Costco, Smirnoff is enjoyable on its own or mixed. It has a fresher citrus character than our other picks, yet these notes are understated until coaxed out by other ingredients in sweeter cocktails or sours. This vodka also has nice peppery and vegetal flavors that flourish when paired with a savory martini or a Bloody Mary. Base ingredient: grain. What we like it in: a Bloody Mary, a classic sour, a vodka soda or tonic, a Moscow Mule, and a martini garnished with an olive, a twist, or an onion. Where it's made: United States. And I'm no longer on board with the history lessons. You should have put your history at the top. Well, it was history about Smirnoff, technically. That first sentence of vodka wasn't readily available in the US until about a century ago. Just really triggered me into shouting about how I feel about the history lesson. But it was the history of Smirnoff. Did we? No, we didn't. Why didn't Kirkland's signature get a history? Was it like, this is word count here? Why weren't they treated the same? Is it so we could smack about the Russian Revolution knocking over the Russian royalty and giving birth to really good US vodka? I don't know about that. Coming back to the creaminess, though. First, in the overly HTML'd box, less creamy but more widely available. And then down in the actual opinion on it, the first sentence of the actual opinion is this vodka is thinner and less creamy, by which apparently they mean it doesn't go down as smooth. I can't stand that. I'm just picturing dairy mixed in with my vodka, and I don't think I like it. I don't want my vodka to spoil. I just want it to be smooth. It has a fresher citrus character. We're coming back to citrus again, and I find that very interesting. But in this one, they decided to knock it down a peg by saying it only belonged, or they only liked it in certain drinks, but then they listed 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 drinks, and 2 of those with variety, which makes me think they could have just probably said anything, unless you want to tell me that you can think of a vodka-specific drink besides a Bloody Mary, a classic sour, a vodka soda, a tonic, a Moscow Mule, and a martini, keeping in mind that a Manhattan is a martini. So there you are. Yeah, I'm still on board with what's going on here, but we're moving on. A salty, unique vodka, Pinnacle Vodka. Pictured, photo, credit Connie Park, the sickly yellow background, but finally a good pairing with this royal diamond blue that Pinnacle Vodka uses, topped with a black wax wrap and the stylized snow rendering of a snowy mountain, as well as the graphical rendering underneath it. The overly HTML'd box reads, Pinnacle Vodka, savory, salty, and strange. This briny vodka is great in savory cocktails, and its strong, salty flavor makes it an interesting and polarizing choice. $15 from Total Wine & More. Right out of the bottle, Pinnacle Vodka tastes remarkably close to a dirty or vermouth-forward martini. It's salty and savory, with notes of brine, cut grass, and tree nuts. It feels round and warm on the palate, and it provides a pop of black pepper flavor before finishing dry on the tongue. When we mixed this vodka into a classic sour, we thought its salt salinity clashed against the other sweet and tart ingredients. But we loved how that flavor worked in its favor in a martini, which we prepared with just vodka and vermouth. We'd advise caution to all but the biggest salt lovers when using this vodka in a dirty martini. Base ingredient, grain. What we like in it, a martini garnished with an onion or olive, a Bloody Mary, a Moscow Mule, and a Greyhound. Where it's made, distilled in France, bottled in the United States. Okay, so we didn't get any history on Pinnacle vodka either, although we did get a really stellar pun, and I must admire Haley Perry for restraining themselves until getting 3/5 of the way through the articles before going with the right out of the bottle. That's really good. Also, this one I have to commend because it's all descriptive, salty and savory with notes of brine, cut grass, and tree nuts. That is what these people are employed for. No amount of education going into my head could have given me the sense of refinement, enjoyment, and pure explicated sensation that notes of brine, cut grass, and tree nuts reflects. I really love that, and I'm pleased to know that it finishes dry on the tongue with a pop of black pepper flavor. I don't believe you on the finishes dry on the tongue. I mean, in the sense that I feel like all vodka finishes dry, unless this one is so salty it finishes extra dry. See, this one's actually really good. I actually really want to try this. This sounds like a fun vodka. I don't know what a Greyhound is, and that's something to look into. And they got me with the word salinity, so good for them. Header: a mild maskable vodka. Oh, I should have read this one ahead. Stolichnia vodka. Pictured below, photo credit to Connie Park, a sickly yellow background, and a vodka that I feel like is taking a lot of label inspiration from Smirnoff with a gold border around a red and white Stolichnia word, and with some sort of monument as the label. It almost looks like the New York Flatiron Building. The HTML box says Stolichnia vodka, the mildest option. This mellow vodka is a boozy chameleon. It's best for those who want to camouflage their alcohol behind other mixers. $21 from Total Wine and More. If you want to imbibe, but you prefer not to taste a lot of alcohol, Stolichnia vodka is mild, neutral, and easily muted. On its own, it finishes quickly and has pleasant notes of cool aloe, fresh lime, and peppery nettles. But when mixed with other ingredients or served over ice, it fades into the background. Compared with our other picks, this vodka is a bit sharper and thinner in texture, and it melts down significantly when diluted. This one is good for people who like to mask their vodka in highballs or martinis. But Stolichnia has the propensity to make shaken cocktails too watery, especially drinks like the White Russians or espresso martinis, which benefit from round, creamy vodkas. Base ingredient, grain. What we like it in, a vodka soda or tonic, a screwdriver, a Greyhound or salty dog, and a martini garnished with an olive, a twist, or an onion. Where it's made, Latvia. We went a whole vodka section without hitting the creaminess thing, but here we are again, and they have to make it personal. I don't drink much ever, period. And when I do drink, there's not much I drink because I know what turns my stomach, and it's the taste of alcohol. One of the things I drink that masks alcohol really well is White Russians because it's mostly Kahlua and dairy. Half and half, if you're wondering, is the our heavy cream, I suppose, is the best, but I like it with half and half. And so they're talking in here that you gotta have creamy vodka for a White Russian, and frankly, I want to disagree just based on the creaminess, but also I'm thinking about it, and I like the sharpness of a vodka underneath all the cream you get out of that sweet Kahlua and that half and half or heavy cream. I don't agree with that in the slightest. Get away from my White Russians. I probably agree with that on an espresso martini, which is one of the other things. that I drink. Do I actually like vodka? I don't think that's true. They pulled out imbibe and propensity, which I do appreciate, but boy, are they really reaching for a certain audience, and I don't appreciate that. Really great, description and conveyance of opinion in this section again, but also just making it seem really weird that Smirnoff is the only one that sacrificed word count to that little history. I also super love in this section the second half where they say, compared with our other picks, this vodka is a bit sharper and thinner in texture, and it melts down significantly when diluted. This one is good for people who like to mask their vodka in highballs or martinis. That's good fucking journalism right there. That really demonstrates knowledge of the product and a desire to inform people rather than just flout that knowledge. Super fucking appreciate it. Starting to wonder if the top two weren't written that way because they were running out, like if they saved those two for last and they were running out of ideas, like people aren't going to care too much about what we tell them to mix the best ones with the one that we recommend in the runner-up because they're just going to put it in everything is the train of thought. I don't know. The first two are seeming, the Smirnoff and the Kirkland are seeming really thin on the ground and padded. Now that we're getting into Pinnacle and Stoyankia, James. $21 though for 750 milliliters. That's a lot. Header. A sweet, robust vodka, Tito's handmade vodka, pictured below the sickly yellow background photo attributed to Connie Park. With a proud bottle of Tito's, its label has always struck me as very definitive, very self-aware, especially when paired with its copper cap. I've never bothered to look closely at what it was. I always thought it was a farmstead. I see now that it's a distillery. That's very good. The overly HTML box says Tito's handmade vodka, a sweeter vodka with pronounced character. This vodka is richer and sweeter than our other picks, so it meshes wonderfully when used in citrusy or savory cocktails. $20 from Total Wine and More. Compared with our most neutral picks, Tito's handmade vodka will not disappear easily when mixed. Its honey-like sweetness remains potent, and its medium body holds even when diluted. It tastes best when counterbalanced with tart, saline, or savory ingredients. Tito's has a slight alcohol burn, and it leaves some astringency on the palate, which makes it less appealing to sip on than our other picks. But it's also round, rich, and complex. When we tasted the vodka alone, we detected faint notes of olive and brine, along with pronounced flavors of butterscotch and honey. These disparate flavors work together wonderfully in martinis garnished with olives or lemon twists, but we found this vodka's texture and sweetness cloying in our vodka sours. If you prefer your cocktails on the sweeter side, you may enjoy Tito's in something like a bee's knees cocktail, which doubles down with the existing honey flavor, or an espresso martini. Otherwise, this vodka adapts better to fresh citrus, carbonation, or savory profiles. Base ingredient, corn. What we like it in, a vodka soda or tonic, a martini garnished with an olive or lemon twist, a Bloody Mary, a Moscow Mule, and a screwdriver. Where it's made, United States. Okay, maybe here's where they were running out of ideas. Astringency? Astringency. I'm not letting that one go. Not the least of which because I thought that was 2 words my entire life, but apparently you can say leaves some astringency, and that's just 3 words between leaves some and astringency. Then coming down to disparate, which I hate just because they used it in the best way. There's so very few situations where you need to use disparate or disparate, or however you pronounce it, instead of separate. But, God, I really think they did use it best there. So I hate it, and I wish they'd stop. However, I'm gonna repeat something to you. These disparate flavors work together wonderfully in martinis garnished with olives or lemon twists. But we found this vodka's texture and sweetness cloying in our vodka sours. That is so close to meter and rhythm. That's so close. I hate that disparate featured in it, but it's so close to a metered sentence. It almost has flow to it. It's so subtle that it's basically not there, but I can see it. I can hear it when I say it. They devoted a lot more to this one's second paragraph than normal, and I really think it was well worth it. I also do not believe at all that vodka can taste of anything unless you mix it, and they want to tell me it tastes of butterscotch and honey, two of my all-time favorite flavors. So I'm going to sucker somebody into buying Tito's Handmade, because I would never allow an article to influence my purchases, but dadgummit, if it's not going to influence my desires. This one's made of corn, though, so maybe they are able to do that. Anyways, now we are down to the competition. Svedka vodka made it to our final round of tasting, but it wasn't as flavorful as our picks. It's a decent option if you find it for a good price, and it's mild enough to mesh with most cocktails. Hangar 1 vodka has nice flavors of orange, citrus, pine, and forest soil, but it was sharper and more bitter than our picks. We dismissed Absolute Vodka and Belvedere Vodka because both were too hot, and with a harsh alcohol burn on the nose and palate. When diluted, they also became watery, yet astringent. Grey Goose Vodka disappeared too much when diluted, but it left behind the unpleasant taste of ethanol. We dismissed Ketel 1 Vodka because we found it to be bland, underwhelming, and harsh. It also became too watery when diluted. Kirkland's signature French vodka was soft, mild, and citrusy, but when we tasted it chilled and with soda, we also picked up off-putting vinyl flavor. We found New Amsterdam vodka to be too thin, bland, and bitter. On its own, Reka vodka was hot, dry, and bitter. When mixed with soda, it practically disappeared, but it left behind a slight alcohol burn. Our testers described Chopin potato vodka as skunky and garlicky, with notes of burned plastic. I hadn't read the competition section. Actually, let me back up. I hadn't read any of this, except for the Kirkland signature, because I was way too hung up on the creamy. Now that I'm down into competition, I'm actually in love with this article, because this list without context is bizarre. Like, if you step away from modern culture and you don't know what vodka is and you read the sentence, Grey Goose vodka disappeared too much when diluted, but it left behind the unpleasant taste of ethanol. You'd think this was a review of military drugs or something. Like, ethanol? You'd think this was straight out of Stalker or something like that. Ketel 1? I said Ketel, but I'm looking at this, it's probably Kettle. Ketel 1 vodka? That's such an aggressive name. Also, we're learning a lot about the testers and about Haley Perry in this. This, more than anything, is giving us the ability to psychoanalyze Haley Perry. They do not want to feel like they're drinking alcohol or getting drunk, because I know what New Amsterdam and Absolute tastes like. I don't know what Belvedere tastes like, which they also dismissed along with Absolute, but I know what Absolute tastes like, and I agree with them when they say that it's too hot. Not temperature-wise, but it just sets your mouth on fire. That to them is the opposite of creamy, is hot. And I do not believe there is a vodka that can diminish the burning enough to actually justify them dismissing Absolute for no other reason than a hierarchy has to be established. So they said, you know what, we're going to pick the ones that to us don't burn. This is just hot, dry, and bitter is Reka vodka. Practically disappears with soda but leaves behind a slight alcohol burn. Haley Perry, is not down to party. Haley Perry is not coming to your rave. Haley Perry's not doing shots with you at a normal bar in Midtown. Haley Perry's only getting cocktails. Haley Perry's only asking for sours. Have you ever asked for sours in your life? I've never asked for sours in my life. I don't make enough money to know what that is. Give me straight. I'm acting like I'm hard right now, and I'm not, but I know people that are hard. I run with them. I fucks with them. They're fun. Is Haley fun? I don't know. Their vodkas aren't very fun. That's not true. Absolute just has a reputation, and I'm incensed to hear that the wire cutter of New York Times is not going to uphold it. Why you should trust us. I fell in love with craft cocktails. I'm sorry, I gotta stop right there. I hadn't read this section. I was right. They're drinking cocktails. I fell in love with craft cocktails when I started bartending at 21, and I have since devoted most of my free time to studying beer, wine, and spirits. I've worked behind bars in nearly every type of establishment, ranging from high-volume venues and fine dining restaurants to one of the biggest whiskey bars in the country. I've attended more than 36 formal trainings and workshops related to beer, wine, sake, amari, and liquor. And I was a judge on the gin panel at the American Distilling Institute's International Spirits Competition in April of 2023. To conduct research for this guide, I interviewed food scientists, distillers, spirits writers, and judges. I paged through roughly 60 different spirits and cocktail books, and I analyzed beverage market data, foreign and domestic trade regulations, and distillation processes. For this guide, I tested vodkas along with 2 all-stars from Wirecutter's kitchen and appliance teams, senior editor Marguerite Preston and senior staff writer Rachel Wharton. They each brought invaluable insight to the guide. Oh, I am laughing so hard. I've never read a subheader section entitled Why You Should Trust Us. That's so bold that it almost horseshoes around to becoming desperate. Shouldn't you have said our expertise or our story or our credentials? Why you should trust us? That's very asking rather than stating. But I have never read a background section that deliberately tried to distance itself from the rough and tumble. When I was pitching, I've worked behind bars in nearly every type of establishment, ranging from high-volume venues and fine dining restaurants. And then you'll notice that my pitch paused and took a little dip as I prepared to go into the next thing. I expected the next thing to be something really adjacent to blue collar. But it was not, and it never appeared. In fact, they've had formal liquor training, not just liquor, but formal training related to beer, wine, sake, and amari. One of those, I don't know what it is, and one of them I just have a very vague cultural idea. And they also interviewed food scientists. They are not trying to endear themselves to anyone that can't afford to live the way they live, huh? I am thoroughly impressed with the idea that they could lay hands on 60 different spirit and cocktail books, because I didn't know those existed, and that's crazy. And I also love the complete and totally closed circle that is the taste testers. They didn't think they'd get the opinions that they want from random taste testers that they would have to pay. So they just used people that were already on payroll. That makes sense. How we picked. Though the best vodka out there is ultimately the one you enjoy drinking the most, for this guide we focused our research on brands that are widely available at major retailers across the country. We checked the archives of international spirits competitions, including the San Francisco World Spirits Competition, the Global Spirits Masters, and the SIP Awards, to reference their award-winning vodkas from the past few years. And to get a general idea of which vodkas other experts like most, we read through reviews from Liquor.com, Punch, Food Network, and Imbibe magazine. To learn more about the history and production of vodka, we spoke with Neil Lotz, the master distiller at Ray Brew Spirits, a distillery in San Diego that converts recycled beer into vodka. We also spoke with David T. Smith, a seasoned spirits writer, consultant, and judge. And we referenced many works, including Vodka, A Global History by Patrice Herlihy, Raising the Bar, A Bottle-by-Bottle Guide to Mixing Masterful Cocktails at Home by Brett Adams and Jacob Greer, and Vodka Distilled, The Modern Mixologist on Vodka and Vodka Cocktails by Tony Abu Ghanim. We landed on our list of 15 contenders by applying a combination of criteria, including price, popularity, availability, and some personal discretion. Because this guide touches on well-known brands, we also encourage you to try different vodkas from your local distilleries until you find one you're happy supporting. Recycled beer into vodka. What do you mean recycled beer? What the fuck is recycled beer? Are you meaning to tell me that there are some parts of this country that are so over-teched that next to their trash cans and their recycling bins, they have got sealed liquid containers where you can dump your beer that'll then be trucked to somewhere where it's processed into vodka? What the fuck is recycled beer? Also, just doubling down on the inability to connect with the low-income earners here. A seasoned spirits writer was the other person they consulted, and then they referenced a bunch of books. Can you imagine someone that, just really likes vodka referencing books to justify their opinion? That's bizarre, possibly schizophrenic behavior. No, I'm sorry, that was a terrible joke. One shouldn't do that. The point that I was trying very crudely to make there was the idea of sitting down with a liquid that's meant to get you fucked up or at best relax you, then swirling it around your mouth and then paging through a couple of different books before deciding how you feel about it is a funny, nonsensical image that's not based on humanitarian logic. Anyways, how we tested. Underneath how we tested is another photo by Connie Park with all 15 vodkas in the sickly yellow background. During the testing process, we wrestled with how to best qualify a good vodka. Everyone has different preferences for flavor, body, and practical application, so we judged each vodka by preparing and serving it in a variety of ways. To design and structure a comprehensive tasting plan, we also consulted food scientist Kenneth Schelk, as well as authors Dave Arnold and David T. Smith. When tasting each vodka, we considered the following properties. Note that this is not an exclusive list of our assessments. Aroma. Nobody wants to tip a glass towards their face and smell something abrasive. A great vodka should express pleasant or neutral scents, and it should ideally leave out the quintessential rubbing alcohol smell found in lousy vodkas. Heat. Some people like the burning sensation of alcohol, but we ruled out the vodkas that were overly harsh on the nose or palate at any stage. Texture and viscosity. We evaluated how each vodka felt on the tongue and throat, and we noted whether it was creamy, oily, thin, or viscous in texture. We also tasted each spirit at different temperatures and in various recipes to see whether changes occurred in a vodka's body when it was diluted. Flavor intensity and complexity. A good vodka will, of course, have good flavor, or, for some people, no flavor at all. We ruled out any vodka that tasted plasticky, antiseptic, or downright off. We favored those that had either prominent or neutral flavor notes, as long as they didn't thin out too much when diluted. Versatility. To analyze how our picks adapted to the many ways vodka is consumed, we tested each one in a diverse set of recipes. Not all of our picks will work out perfectly in each single cocktail, but we carefully made our selection to accommodate a wide range of preferences. For our initial round of testing, we tasted all 15 vodkas with the brands concealed. We tried each of them in their own at room temperature, as well as mixed with club soda to draw out subtle flavors and aromas. Carbonation and soda water help carry aromas to the nose. They also bring out more complex flavors by diluting the alcohol, which food scientist experts authors Kenneth Schelk and David Arnold both confirmed. And we chilled samples of each vodka in the freezer to taste for any changes in character or texture. We then poured over room temperature vodka We then poured each room temperature vodka over ice to see how it held up to dilution, and we ruled out any brands we disliked. After eliminating the vodkas we liked least, we repeated the same testing steps using our finalists. Then we finished by tasting each one mixed as a vodka soda garnished with a lemon wedge. From there, we kept the vodkas that did a good job of maintaining their composition and flavor. Those that basically turned to ice water with a hint of ethanol were dismissed. We then mixed the most promising contenders into vodka sours and martinis to observe any complementary or conflicting flavors, as well as structural changes caused by stirring and shaking. After we prepared the martini, we divided it into 2 glasses, one garnished with an olive and one with a lemon twist. While writing this guide, I tasted our final picks again and again over the course of months, and I sampled them in additional cocktails, including a Bloody Mary and a Moscow Mule. We use the following ratios to make classic vodkas, vodka sours, and martinis. Vodka soda, 2 ounces vodka, topped with 4 ounces Fever Tree Club soda. Vodka sour, 1 1/2 ounces vodka, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, 3/4 ounce simple syrup. Martini, 2 1/2 ounces vodka, 1/2 ounce Dolan dry vermouth, stirred, not shaken. That was a surprisingly long section where they finally sat down and said, 1, we're not fun, and 2, we're super into this creaminess thing. I'm sorry, but just, it's vodka. To say that you ruled out the vodkas that were overly harsh on the nose or the palate, and to say that you don't like the heat of vodka, what are you doing with the vodka? There's a level of insistence there that I feel like is being added super arbitrarily or from a super incorrect angle. Like, this article didn't need to exist already. I need you to follow my logic here. There's things in this world that need to exist and they don't need to exist. This one didn't need to exist. So that means any decisions that are made regarding its existence are, from my perspective, made arbitrarily because its genesis point is arbitrary. Doesn't need to exist, therefore nothing in this article needs to exist. So when I am basically able to get on board with everything that goes on with an article, except for a couple of things, I feel very justified in lambasting those couple of things. And this thing about the heat and this thing about the creaminess are just really pushing me the wrong way more than anything. But there was a lot going on in this section, and I kind of zoned out on some of it towards the end. It seemed like a fine way to run the blind tests. You know, that didn't seem like a bad thing. I was just mostly hung up on these things that they're judging, one of which is a trait of vodka that I feel like is a reason you go to vodka besides. Because vodka and gin have basically the same proof by alcohol content. Gin just tends to have less heat. So why... Anyways, what else can I say about this section? We're starting to wind down. I don't know much about drinking vodka and the ways that they're talking about creating the vodka. It's nice that there's recipes for scientifically concocted vodka sodas, sours, and martinis in here. That's probably really useful. I will say, and I was going to save this to the end, but maybe that this belongs right here while we're talking about the fact that they were tasting these over months and months. That is the leg up that you, the person with inherent talent, has over these people. These people space out these things that they do over months and months, and they have a schedule for doing them, and it takes them forever, and it has a level of refinement that can only be achieved by beating their heads against the wall over and over again, and is only by managing the crazy amounts of stress and anxiety that comes with trying to beat your head against a wall over and over again until you achieve an intangible goal, the quality of which is dictated by forces beyond your comprehension, that they ever produce anything that can be called quality. I'm not knocking Perry's talent here. I'm saying that Perry's talent is at a level that you, the listener, can exceed without banging your head against the wall over and over again. That's what my voice achieves me that other people don't have the advantage of. I may not be able to immediately call up an accent, and I may not be immediately be able to call up an emotion, but whenever I read anything and whenever I say anything, as long as I say it naturally, it sounds gorgeous. That's an inherent talent that I have that I don't have to beat my head into a wall over and over again to work on. I don't have to be in a mindset to talk beautifully. There are some of you listening that don't have to be in a mindset to write beautifully. You just do it. And you are up against the wall that every author is up against, is you have to find the ability to bother to do it. Because that's how fucking gifted you are. That's how fucking gifted I am. And that's how fucking gifted you are. We can crank out things like this on the weekly, whereas they have to span it out over multiple weeks. And then we can take all that, we can ball it up into a portfolio, we can use it to get a foot in the door, and then we can use a studio's money to make our visions real. That's a thing that you and I can do as talented individuals. And I want you to take that away from this article. This article was paid for with the time and talent of New York Times employees. It's just about vodka. It's only about 5 of them, and then the rest of all of this bulk is just talking about what they like about vodka and how they prepare their vodka. That's all this is, and they got paid to do it. You have the talent to do it, and you just have to find the bother to do it without getting paid, ball it up into a portfolio, get your foot in the door in a small studio, make your dreams real. You can do it, I can do it, let's do it. Why you shouldn't pay a lot for vodka unless you want to. There's no good way to know whether you'll love a vodka before you try it, since you can't realistically judge a bottle's quality based solely on its price, base material, or labeling. And unfortunately, most buzzwords found on labels are purely marketing devices that don't signify quality. For example, many brands advertise the number of times their vodka has been distilled, yet the distillers we interviewed, as well as other published works we reference, all corroborated that the stated number of distillations on a bottle is inaccurate and uninformative. A higher or lower number of distillations does not correlate to a higher or lower quality. That's because the number doesn't account for all of the other variables in the distilling process that can differ from one distillery to another. Variables such as included additives, the quality of the feedstock, or the type of stills used. We also learned in our research, as well as firsthand, that there's no appreciable difference between top and bottom shelf vodkas, aside from packaging, whereas other spirits such as whiskey might cost more because of factors like age, volume loss, scarcity, or source materials. Neutral vodka is theoretically inexpensive, unfussy, and quick to produce. That isn't to say that vodka can't use an expensive base material, or that it can't express terroir, or character from its raw ingredients. I'm sorry, it's a French word I'm not familiar with. Terroir, terroir, or character from its raw ingredients. Most people think of vodkas as coming from the raw materials like potatoes and grain, but it can be produced from nearly any edible ingredient under the sun, such as milk, fruit, rice, and even air. Someone with an expert palate may be able to appreciate the subtle characteristics that come from different base ingredients. But materials alone won't indicate quality. There are too many other factors in production that influence texture, flavor, and smoothness of the final product. Oh, so you do know the word smooth. You haven't used it, I don't think, the entire article. Hang on. I love being in the digital age. I don't have to rescan this whole article. I can go to find in page, and I can type smooth. Not only is this the first time they've used the word smoothness, it's also the first time they've used the word smooth. Now, I agree that smooth is not a word that comes anywhere near vodka. See my previous rant about the heat and the bite. But for them to be throwing the word creamy around when all they wanted was silkness or smoothness, and to leave the word smooth out until the very end, this right here, for me, is like finding a copy of the Bible that still has Lilith in it. This right here makes me go, you fucked up. You almost convinced me that you were legit, but now I see that this is bullshit that you failed to cover up adequately. I'm going to calm down about the creaminess thing. Now, it's the only reason that we're even doing this, but I'm going to calm down about it nonetheless because I'm shouting. I'm sorry I don't know the word terroir. I will go to the trouble of looking up how it's pronounced later. I'm not going to waste your time with it right now. This is a really interesting section. For one thing, I am pleased to have a source that I can maybe sort of kind of trust to at least do the research, say that distillation doesn't matter. Because Dan Aykroyd really wanted you to know, amongst other things, that Crystal Head vodka was quadruple distilled. He felt that it was very important that you know that it was quadruple distilled, and I think we all called rightly when JonTron made that video that couldn't possibly matter. But apparently, Perry has gone to the work of referencing other works and distillers to let you know that it does not correlate to a higher or lower quality. You can quote Perry on that. What else was said in here that I cared about? This is a lot of bulk right here. Why you shouldn't pay a lot for vodka. Oh yeah, even Air has a hyperlink. It really wants you to click on that, and I really want to click on that because I want to know what they mean. You can distill vodka from air. That's so interesting to know. I knew you could get it from rice and fruit. I didn't know milk could be fermented over into alcohol without spoiling, so that's very interesting. We're almost at the end here. What about gluten-free vodka? Of our picks, Smirnoff, Tito's, and Kirkland Signature American Vodka are labeled gluten-free on the bottle. But most distilled alcohol is gluten-free by nature, and it's deemed safe for people with celiac disease regardless of the base ingredient, because distillation removes gluten proteins from the final product. Gluten proteins are heavy and not volatile, so they sink to the bottom of the still rather than vaporizing and siphoning off with the rest of the alcohol. The exception to this is the uncommon instance where gluten is added post-distillation, such as in some flavored spirits or those finished in beer barrels, but unflavored vodka is unaged and neutral by law, so it shouldn't contain any gluten additives post-distillation. Although the TTB, which you'll recall stands for Alcohol Tax and Trade Bureau, although the TTB, which regulates distilled spirits, stipulates that gluten-free labels can be placed only on products containing less than 20 parts per million of gluten, there is currently no federally overseen process for obtaining the certified gluten-free seal. If you see the certification label on food or beverage packaging, it is likely from a third-party company such as NSF or BRCGS. In short, beyond celiac, the National Celiac Association, Celiac Disease Foundation, all affirm that distilled liquor is free of gluten and therefore safe for consumption by people with celiac disease. But as always, you should first check with your healthcare provider regarding any safety concerns. Meet your guide. Haley Perry is an associate staff writer at Wirecutter covering video games and technology. She used to review video games full-time, and she's also a big fan of mezcal. If you get enough in her, she may just admit that she still plays The Sims a lot. I'm guessing that's not what it says on her LinkedIn. Ugh, what a lucky son of a bitch. Used to review video games full-time and is now employed by the New York Times. Or a subsidiary of, anyways. That's fucking crazy. Very interesting to know. I'm really looking forward to the part of human history where we fixed everything and it's actually safe to have access to all the information at once so we can just wire it into our brain. Because then just coincidentally, we're going to know shit like protein molecules are heavy. gluten protein molecules are heavy and they don't vaporize, so therefore they don't distill into vodka. That's fucking fascinating information. And I'm excited to be able to get a hold of facts like this in the near future. That is just great. Go figure with these fucking certified gluten-free seals. No federally overseen process for obtaining the certified gluten-free seal. What's the government doing then, if not cracking down on people that are coming out with these bullshit seals, is what I want to know. Like, just use the Homeland Security for that, you know? Use Homeland Security to put people out of business that are putting fake certified seals on everything. The people running the caller ID scams have offices. You know what I mean? Let's use Homeland Security for that. That is finally the whole article. There are the sources, which are David T. Smith on a Zoom interview, Kantha Shelk in an email interview, David Arnold in an email interview, Karen Sorvin in an in-person interview, and Neil Lotz in an in-person interview. To have to conduct an email interview must be truly terrible. Like, that must take days. No wonder they had months to just be sipping vodka and thinking about it. An idyllic lifestyle, just sipping on vodka and going, oh man, I need to write about this. It's really coming down from a cloud of opiates right there, aren't you? I hope you enjoyed that. I hope that was informative, entertaining, and inspirational. We can do it. We can make that stuff on our own time if we can just find the passion for it and then use it as a portfolio to get our foot in the door with an indie studio or something. There's something out there for you. Someone's got the money and the equipment to produce your dream. Your dream just needs to justify itself to them. And that's unfortunate, and it shouldn't be that way. Or rather, the way that it should be should take a much less harsh form than working 5 or 10 years at a job that you hate, slowly building an unpaid portfolio of masterworks to eventually justify the masterwork that gets support and funding. It should be gentler than that, your dream's justification. Your life should be gentler than that, come to think of it. But you and I can do it. You know, what I'm doing right here will eventually be part of a portfolio that will eventually build up to something that I can use to leverage creative access. It doesn't seem that way because it's not in itself serious journalism or pure artistry, but it is a flexing of my talent. That's what you need to do, is flex your talent and be comfortable in sharing that flexing. I fucked up a lot in this, but I'm still going to publish it. Thank you. Thank you so much for being here. How long has this run? Yeah, this is a whole hour. You're very welcome, and I'm very worn out. I gotta go do other things with my overworked day. Everybody stay hydrated and stay safe.